Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Track. This is episode number 27. Been fun so far. This one's going to be really good because it's with my buddy, and I'm a little scared of where this might go because when we get talking, it spirals. We'll call this the Malcolm Stewart Mookie Fever episode because it's number 27. And I know this man likes Malcolm. Jason Weigandt, welcome to the show.
Oh, I've had the fever. It's more of a low-grade fever these days than heat race Mookie, but I'm okay. I'm still pumped. Because
do you like Solid Mookie? I like Solid Mookie. He's good.
What I like about Solid Mookie is, and I know you'll agree, when Solid Mookie's there in fifth, you still feel like maybe there's that extra 5% that could happen at any moment, and then it becomes a win. So that's what's exciting about number 27.
Yeah, I was bummed last night though because he had a good ride going, and then.
Yeah, he gave some of the fever to Vince Freezy though. He gave the fever to Freeze. He burned the freeze, so I think people were okay with that. Yeah.
Weege, I'm pumped to have you on, man. This is going to be fun because whenever you and I talk, it just I don't know where we're going to end up. But I do want to start with a hot and heated debate.
Oh, okay.
Let's get to the bottom of this flagger situation here because you're saying there's no issue.
There's nothing to get to the bottom of, Daniel. This is an open and shut case, bro.
Okay, well, we're going to the beginning of Weege. And the beginning of Weege apparently is there's a chapter of flagging. I've heard it didn't happen. I heard it did happen. What's the truth?
Okay, well, there's fake news saying that it didn't happen. I was a caution flagger at my local track, which is Raceway Park in Englishtown, New Jersey. It's the one track we have in New Jersey. And I thought that was, like, going to get me in the industry. I didn't realize that, like, caution flagging is not necessarily, like, you're going to work your way from the mailroom to become CEO. I guess it doesn't work that way with flagging. So I did it for, I think, 4 seasons, something like that. And then oddly, I did have to leave because I got a job at Racer X. And the guy who handed the $40 out at the end of the day for flagging, when I told him, it's going to be my last race because I'm getting a job with Racer X in Morgantown. I'm sure he believed that. I'm sure he believed that I was going from flagger to that.
Yeah, that's how it happens. We usually graduate our flaggers to Racer X. Good job, I'm sure, Jason.
Exactly. Yeah. And he never saw me again. And he's probably like, I don't know where that kid is now. But I did flag.
He doesn't even know.
No. But the reason this is a controversy, Daniel, is because people are like, well, we haven't seen any photographic proof that you're a flagger. Who takes pictures of the flaggers? Of course there's no photographic proof. Who takes pictures?
Who's on your side here? Because you've got some defenders, right?
I do have some, but we did a live show before the New Jersey Supercross 2 years ago, and my mom was in the audience. And we did a survey, and we even asked my mom, who would see me leave at 6 a.m. to go to the track. And even she said, I don't know, maybe he's lying.
Oh.
Mom, what are you doing? So I've got no one with any hard data or proof, and we were paid in cash. So I can't even give you the receipts.
I believe you.
Now I got one. I got Daniel.
All right. I believe you. I don't think you lie. So, and the leader of the other side, I've heard him say some stuff before that dances around the truth. So yeah. I'm gonna go with you on this one. But what I want to do on the show is definitely go through your timeline because you are like a fixture in this sport. I mean, in so many different ways. So not just from the commentating the outdoors, the race review shows, the racer. I mean, you're everywhere. But I want to go to the beginning when you weren't everywhere yet, and kind of just where did the seed start with you before you turned into this lovely tree?
Yeah, there's this book called Outliers that says like anyone who's able to get like to the top of their field or do anything unique or exceptional always has some weird circumstance that helped. And it doesn't mean like they inherited a bunch of money or their dad owned the company and handed it to them. It's something else that's even wilder. So for me, my dad worked for Bel Ray, which is an oil company. He had nothing to do with the racing department. And in those years, they weren't really that big into racing anyway. But they did buy ads in the motorcycle magazines, which meant they got free subscriptions. And if it's free, it's for me. So one day when I was like 5, I'm visiting my dad at his office, and there's a lobby with these piles of cycle news and motocross action and all these magazines. And I thought that was the coolest thing. I had never seen these magazines before. Like every kid, you like cars and trucks and vehicles. And then he got the magazines for free. So by the time they were done at the end of the month in the lobby, they were either going to throw them out or he would just bring them home. So literally like age 8 or 9, I was by far the best reader in 2nd and 3rd grade because I was literally reading cycle news every week. And that's all we had, back then. And then a couple years later, the races started to get on TV. And then I was super into it by then. I actually learned how to program a VCR at age 9 because the races were on at 12:30 a.m. on Thursday nights for a half hour on ESPN. And I had a box full of every video cassette tape with every race that had ever been on TV and boxes with every magazine that had come out during that span. And that was it. I was just diehard super fan. I don't think there's many people that are in the position you and I are that like came into the sport late. Like you either love it from the start. It's hard to discover it and be this into it.
Yeah.
So I was fan from day one, into it from day one. I can't even tell you the difference. Like years before I worked in the industry and years after, it all feels the same to me. It wasn't like, oh, that was 1999. I wasn't really following it that much. Like it's the same, being a fan or a worker.
Been all in. Now, my question is though, because this happens a lot in this industry. Okay, say it's the magazine Cycle News that drew you in, but if that would have been a stack of NASCAR or IndyCar type stuff, do you think this would have been the same passion, or was it the dirt bike side of things that really drew you in? Because again, you said you read a lot, but were you reading it because you love the dirt bike, or could it have been NASCAR if those were the magazines stacked at the house?
This is why you're hosting the show. I've never been asked that before. I've never even thought about that one before. But dude, you know, like you have a son that's into it now, right? As do I. There isn't any, this is not a nature or nurture debate. This is, you get it naturally. There's no way that I was just this automatically into, I'm going to read a newspaper at age 8 just because it happens to be sitting in front of me. No, there was something that I just was taken to. And even last night watching Ken Roxon ride around in the lead, there's something that looks awesome and poetic and artistic and athletic. It just looks cool. And I don't see any other motorsport to me that looks that cool. I'm into them all. I like them all, but nothing looks as cool as dirt bike riding. And I guess I felt that way at, age 6 also.
It's crazy too, because even the people that just participate and don't work in the industry like we are, just people that ride, it's like once they do 5 minutes, it's game over. Like I don't see many people leave. Like I even have a friend at home, my buddy Nick, no matter what's going on in his life, he's still on the couch. He watches every race. He can't leave it. He used to ride when he was young. And he said, no matter where he's at in life, what job he has, it doesn't matter. Supercross is on the TV Saturday nights. He can't miss it. Don't mess with him. It's like once you get the hook and it's in you, no matter what age too, it's in you forever. So I mean, you answered my question. It happened to be the dirt bikes that you saw in there. And you're like, this is rad. And then of course you start reading about it. You read about the stars and you just become addicted to the sport. So yeah, that was my question, I guess, from the beginning. But how about as you get into your adult life, obviously, because you're a kid at one point, you're not working. I mean, maybe you're reading and because you love it, but at some point it comes time, you got to make money, you got to pay bills. We know how important that is to you and not spending any extra. But when did it, for you, become like, okay, I want to make this like a job and I don't just love it as a passion?
It almost didn't, because this sport is so small. You don't really grow up, at least I didn't, thinking that I was going to make a living in this sport. There were like 4 people doing that. The industry was even smaller back then, especially on, say, the media side. I'm sure if you went to the pits in like 1996 to the way the pits look now, there weren't as many people, weren't as many jobs back then. So I wasn't even really thinking that this was going to be a path I could get into. I went to college. I totally thought that I would just have a regular 9-to-5 job. I went for public relations, and I thought I'd be working at a PR firm in like New York as entry-level coffee getter and work my way up. But I was lucky with the timing, and this is that Outliers thing. Those magazines happened to be in the lobby of my dad's office, and then all the motocross industry really took place in California. And right around that time that I was graduating college, Davey Coombs starts Racer X, and the only difference to me was, hey, that's only like 5 hours from where I live. I could get to their office. Driving cross country to California to hang out for a week and introduce yourself, that's pretty ambitious. Driving 5 hours to be like, hi, I read, I'm into it. So it became a little bit of a goal. I'm like, hey, if I could just meet Davey and those guys that do that magazine, maybe I'll get somewhere. And I really, honestly, my only goal was to maybe be able to say in my adult life, yes, I was an intern for them when I was younger. Oh, that's cool. Like, I didn't think it turned into a job. But when you're 22 and you're just graduating college, you don't have really bills to pay. You could do whatever you want. You got a couple of years to be completely irresponsible and totally selfish. So I took that risk. I was lucky that, the internet was just kind of starting. This is like early 2000s. Web content, I was like, yeah, we'll take more. So I started driving to the races that were within driving distance and sending them race reports. They didn't pay. I didn't care. And eventually they offered me a job, but this is where the fork in the road comes. I have a lot of people that come up and say, how did you get these awesome gigs that you have now? And I'm like, I was willing to write stories about the quad races in the woods. And then that's when the people say, oh, I'm out. And they leave. They go this way. But that was the job they offered. And I was like, sounds good to me. Yes, exactly. And because of all those magazines, you know, Bel-Ray advertised and everything. So I got quad magazines too. So I knew enough about the quads and off-road and ATV motocross and whatever, all these other smaller parts of the industry that no one was really looking for a job in. I had enough knowledge to take that first job and just, it got me in the office. And dude, I spent years, literally, if you wanted to race your quad at an off-road, like a woods race, a GNCC, and you're like, I got a K&N air filter and I got a new header pipe. What class am I in? You called the office and you talked to me. And I spent about 5 years being that guy. Like, here's how you sign up. Here's the tire pressure you want to run. Here's how long the track is. It was practically customer service for quad woods racing. Most Supercross fans aren't dying for that job, but I'm telling you, just take it, because this is where it ended up.
You hear that song? Started from the bottom, now we're here.
That's right.
Dude,
that's right. Yeah.
Calling quad races in the woods, man. No offense to the quad racers out there that ride in the woods, but
yeah,
a little bit more of a glamorous situation that you're in right now.
Yes, exactly. Like, I'm in a press box now at stadiums. It's a big difference from, 7 a.m. patrolling the starting line and announcing the youth race for the ATV side. But whatever, man. It was all cool to me. I never felt like, oh, this sucks. Hopefully I get out of here someday. Anytime you're getting your first opportunity to write a story or to take a photo or to announce, which all those things were, like, I couldn't believe I was in charge of the website. I got to put my name on it. That was all exciting to me.
Now, there's writing, there's the commentating side. We're at that point in those early days doing that stuff. Were you doing a little bit of everything? And if you were, was any of them standing out as, man, I really like this more than the other? Or did you like the coverage just no matter what, just all the coverage?
Yeah, the announcing thing wasn't even a plan. I did when I first went to college. That's the direction I wanted to go, like TV production. But back then, the editing process was so horrible. Because I'm old enough now where we were doing everything. It's like you had like 2 tapes and you had this machine and these dials. And I remember I edited like a fake talk show, and it was like an 8-minute show. And I think it took me 20 hours to edit it. I did a fake interview with Tom Cruise. Like, I got all these Tom Cruise movies and made fake answers to my questions. And it seemed hilarious and great, but it took me a whole week to do an 8-minute thing. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. And I was like, no one seems to be as interested in the writing side. That would probably be easier to get in. So that's what I used. Again, no one was asking to do the writing at all. That's how it got me in the door. No one was asking to do the quad races. Got me in the door. And then once I was there, guess what? There weren't a lot of experts on quad racing in the woods. So when the series finally got on television, they started asking me, the TV crew would call like every hour. Hey, what about this guy? What about that guy? What's this guy do? Can you give us more notes? Can you give us more info? And then eventually they said, hey, you know what? Instead of us asking you and writing it down, do you want to just do it? So suddenly I'd become a television announcer. And at the races, I mean, dude, these are woods races. The announcer can't even see the track. Right. So the announcer there, my buddy Rodney Tomlin, who is still the GNCC announcer to this day, he was more than glad to be like, hey, you want to give me a 45-minute break and announce for a little while? So again, so much of it was, these were jobs no one else wanted to do. Everyone was looking for help. And I've often said, and I know you're probably of the same philosophy, I almost never am asking for work. I'm usually just saying, hey, can I help you? And then people are like, yeah, we'd be glad. Go ahead, take the mic, take the computer, whatever it is. So that's how I got it in.
Now, when you started at Racer X, at that point, were you having any ambition towards a direction, or was it the same thing where you loved all the coverage and you were willing to just do whatever? Or were you at that time starting to go, I would love to be the commentator for pro motocross. I would love to be the editor at Racer. Like, did you have an end goal at all? I mean, or even now, do you still have an end goal, or do you just take on everything? Because I take on everything. You ever seen that movie with Jim Carrey, Yes Man?
Yeah.
I gotta like delete that movie out of my memory, and you probably should too. But I just say yes to everything because it's like opportunity. But did you have any direction when you started going, this is where I'd love to steer my career, or this is what I really want to do? Or were you just yes, man?
It's definitely both. I mean, for me to say that I'm not yes man with all the different things I'm doing would be ridiculous. So obviously, but I will say that part of the motivation of, hey, this guy is this magazine that's on the East. I can get to it and visit just to give it a shot. But also, people forget this, but you did one of these shows with him. Davey was the pit reporter on television for Supercross for a long time. So I felt like, hey, if I can meet this guy, not only is that inroads into publishing and being a reporter because he has a magazine, but he obviously knows something about the broadcast side as well. So for sure, I mean, that's the fun glory job. Like the slick part of your job is what you get to do on Saturday night, right? Once that night show begins. We all want that. So of course that was appealing to me. As our industry is, it's not the NFL. It's not as big as some other sports. We can't just do 4 hours of work once a week and get this massive paycheck that some other big sports do. So you have to be ambitious. But I do think, and you're probably like me, I feel like if you're ambitious enough to work hard enough to get to this position, I mean, would you really be able to turn it off, Monday through Thursday and not do something even regardless of the pay? I don't know if I could turn it off even if
it's depressing sometimes. I've had that happen where I shut the valve off and I'm depressed halfway through the day. Like I need to get back to doing something. So it is still work. It is grinding. I know you work ridiculous hours too, but that old saying, it doesn't really feel like work. It really doesn't because it's like enjoyable. So it's like, it is grinding. And there is times when I'm tired and I know you're tired, but I don't ever feel like it sucks.
I agree. I mean, I put together a video last night as soon as the race was over and I was more awake and excited doing it than I was if I had just gone to bed. And I could have done it this afternoon. I didn't have to stay up late last night. I'm the editor of the website. I can basically make whatever deadline dates I want. But just like you doing your own podcast when you probably don't have to because you already did a ton, you just have things you want to talk about. And it's exciting. So, yeah, I'd say the ultimate goal was to be on TV. But it definitely wasn't a one-track thing where, once I get that, I'll be done with the rest of the stuff. I don't know if we could stop ourselves even if we had that option.
I don't think so. Again, we see your face on television. A lot of people listen to the review show that you guys do after every Supercross and motocross. But the writing side, you are still writing so much. Just kind of take me through that and how important that still is. Because, again, people are waiting for this coverage. They're waiting for these reports. I mean, when you press send and it pops up on the site, it's like you have an audience waiting. That's still so important, and it's an important role for the things that you do.
Yeah, we started RacerX started as a magazine, so it's always going to be typed out words first. I feel we've done a good job of also having a presence with podcasts and YouTube and social media. So, but maybe we're a little heavier on the writing side than we need to be. But as dumb as we are at times, we do look at numbers, and it is odd that a lot of times, we always were the theory, everybody already watched the race on TV. What else do they need to know? But it doesn't always work that way. It is a 3-hour show on television. Maybe somebody was hanging out with their buddies on Saturday and they missed something, or maybe they didn't have time to get to it. So we know by the numbers that it is surprising, like a Q&A interview, we'll put it each way. You can listen to it as a podcast. You can see it on YouTube with you folks in the post-race press conference, but we'll have it transcribed and people read it that way. And you do find, these press conferences after the race, they could be a half hour or an hour. That's a long commitment for someone to stare at the computer for a half hour, but you could skim the Q&A or the story in 8 or 10 minutes and get the gist of it. So there is still a market for that, and that's still why we feel like we need to do it. There are people on Sunday morning that are going to look at their computer at 6 a.m. and say, in 15 minutes, I want to know everything that happened. And you can't quite get that any other way. Again, we're probably a little more in that direction than others because that's our roots. And that is the hardest. Dude, it is the hardest thing of all. But I still like doing it. And again, I don't think I could do a YouTube video every day and say, I got it all out. I'm good. I don't know if I'd ever be able to stop the writing thing. I do really enjoy it.
Now, when you are writing these stories, again, you're covering. So you talk about the people that watch the whole race. They might have seen everything, but they don't really know how to dissect it all the way. You obviously give them the opportunity to dissect things more. But at the same time, the world has been changing. It's still changing. This digital world's changing. And from what I've talked to with the guys that are in photography, videography, it's all about now. How hard is that now for you? Again, instead of having the time to write your report, get it all out, it's all about getting it out as fast as possible. Is that the biggest challenge now as far as the writing side?
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest challenge. I bet you, I haven't put this on a chart, but I'm sure if we looked at our workflow from 2013 and now, I think we basically went to the race. Maybe I wrote one thing after the race. And then Monday morning, after all the travel, you're flying all day Sunday. Monday morning, we probably got to it. And then it was like, now we need to do 3 things on Saturday night. So we've got stuff on the site on Sunday. And now it's like, as soon as you land on Sunday, you've got to have it posted. You can't wait till Monday anymore. It used to be crazy that stuff existed on Monday. Only 24 hours after the race, there's information. The TV shows used to be on 3 months after the race. So we have had to turn that up. But I'll tell you the other thing that's a challenge is tough for me. You folks keep doing a better and better job. So as Race Day Live gets better and the television show gets better, and shows like you're doing right now get better, for us to find something that people don't already know gets harder. So you just have to keep raising that bar. Every time I watch the TV show and you guys get a scoop, I'm like, that's one scoop that maybe Racer X is going to be the only one that got it. And it was just on TV. So it's no longer news.
Wow. Okay. I never thought of it that way. Again.
So back it down, dude. Back it down. All right.
I'll talk to my higher ups and see what we can do about that.
Okay. We do find, I will say, we used to think that there was obvious info. Like if we post that Jet Lawrence got injured in a race, you would think no one's going to click on that. They all saw it on TV. Again, it doesn't always work that way. We've kind of surprised ourselves. Like we're thinking the audience is this big, but maybe it's that big. And that we're still providing a service to somebody.
And again, people are looking for a different take too. And that's the thing with Racer X and Swap Model, all these.
Yep.
It's your take on what happened too. And I think that's what people want to know more than anything. Because I feel like when it comes to just the information, people get it.
Yep.
They find a way. It might be on your Twitter, it might be on Racer X's Twitter, it might be wherever. But it's the analyzing of those things that actually matters. So even if, like I said, if information's dropping, they still want to know like what you think about it or what JT thinks about it. And you guys do a lot on the website, all these different takes. I mean, I have to imagine that draws a lot of traffic too, because people like to know your take on things, because it helps them go to their buddies and go, hey, you know what I think? And it makes them more educated. So I have to imagine that it's not just the reporting, but it's your take and the style in which you write and your angles on things that matter more to people.
Yeah, I think we were all worried when social media came around. There's going to be this time where the athletes could then become their own media, and then media itself would become useless. I mean, I think that's happened to a degree, but I don't think nearly as much as you'd think, because again, for a fan to be so into it, to be able to consume all that, I think it's harder than we realize. So to have like a one-stop shop where you can get all the info. If you go to the racerxonline.com site, you're probably going to find out everything that everyone had to say. And the idea that you're going to be on every rider's Facebook and Instagram and listen to all these podcasts and read all these stories and all these videos that everybody is putting out. I mean, now tons of riders even have vlogs. So add that to the pile. The idea that any one fan is really going to be able to follow all of that is almost impossible. So I feel like as long as we become like the one-stop shop where if you're looking at what we have every day, you're probably not going to miss anything important. It gets the job done. So it hasn't been as bad as I thought, but there definitely was a time where like, dude, we're going to be out of work. They'll just read about Dean Wilson from Dean Wilson's Instagram. But to follow 300 different riders and stories and things, and it is nice to sometimes get some interpretation and explanation, and maybe a little less bias than the athlete themselves. We're actually okay with that. Better than I thought.
I'm going to throw out a question to you that is a little bit random here, but I want to hear your thought on it, because you're bringing up the riders and their vlogs and they're, delivering their own content. Back in the days, the music days when rock stars were rock stars, right? Mm-hmm. No one had access to them. It was a mystery. So you'd want to go see them because you can't believe you're actually getting to see Mick Jagger, because he's not on his Instagram showing you, hey, here's my kitchen, come on inside. Do you feel at all like the access that we have now to the athletes takes away a little bit of their rock star-ish, because now they're so available and they're all available? And this is just a thought I just hit my head, so I don't even know where I'm going with it all the way, but I feel like rock stars used to be rock stars because you had no access to them. Do you feel like there's any of that with the sport where we almost have too much access to the athletes through themselves, and instead of us bringing the coverage where we're trying to get to them, now they're almost exposing everything? It's the Jason Anderson thing. He's like maybe the one rock star because he's the one who's the least likely to give you anything. You think there's anything there and kind of a something there?
It's a great thought. I think it's twofold. I don't think it hurts like fans wanting to say, come to the race, because I think what we found is Kellen Brower, there's only 3 of us that really run that RacerX website. It's Mitch Kendra and Kellen Brower and myself. Kellen says that his wife is more into the races because she follows the wives and she's into what riders have kids, what riders have dogs. She likes that whole thing. Now, that wasn't a part of the sport that you would ever even have known about 20 years ago. So she's just as excited. And I'm just using her as an example. There's probably tons of wives and girlfriends that are now like, if I go to the race, maybe I'll see her. Maybe I'll see her in the pits. This is a non-COVID times. So I think it makes their celebrity bigger because maybe there's something that you were interested in that you can see now that you didn't even know about. So I think from that perspective, it's good. Where I do feel bad is, do you remember in like 2002, if you saw 1 lap of James Stewart at a test track in November, it was like, I actually saw what the Cowie track looked like, and I actually saw 1 lap of James Stewart. How did he look? How's that going to translate to January? Yeah. Dude, now you end up, you notice, and you do it too. You scroll, a guy will do a double backflip, and you will scroll right past it. It doesn't even register. It's crazy.
Or a rider is on their Instagram, puts together a little 30-second clip, and I'm like, cool. And I'm just scrolling through, where, again, to your point, 15, 20 years ago, if James Stewart all of a sudden had some weird social media device called Instagram and you could watch a minute clip with music, you'd be like watching it over.
Oh my gosh.
Over. And over. So yeah, it's the access thing. But to your point, I think it does open up the umbrella, because even my wife, after the first round this year, she followed Christian Craig, she followed Paige Craig and Jagger Craig because of Christian's win and his podium interview. And now she loves the Craig family.
Right.
And she would have never had that with Jeff Stanton. She wouldn't have followed Jeff Stanton and his dog and his kid and whatever. You know what I mean?
It's just,
So it does open up the umbrella to fans who want access to other things that other than just the guy doing whips all the time. You know what I mean?
And the other guys who really benefited from this, and it's not just social media, it's all these podcasts where we all have to have so many guests, right? The Alex Rays of the world, Adam Enignap is a huge star. There was a time in this sport where the top 5 or 6 riders, the ones that could win on any given weekend, where their popularity compared to the 12th place rider was massive. I feel that it's certainly not equal. Like Eli Tomac and Ken Roxon and Cooper Webb are still the stars, but Alex Ray making every main, there are a lot of fans that know him much more so than the Alex Ray of 20 years ago, again, because of all this media. So it sucks that you can put together an amazing banger edit and people scroll right through it. But I think for the most part, it's helped.
Yeah, I just think of the music thing, because I follow some bands that I like, and it's like, they're like, hey, come in our rehearsal room, let me show you this. I'm thinking, man, back in like the Motley Crue days, they ain't showing you the inside of the tour bus. That's like forbidden territory where you just wonder. And I'm just wondering if there's any of that missing, because they access there. I think there's a balance to it. There's a give and take. Anyways, crazy thought that hit me. Sorry.
I like it.
Let's get back to you. As you are writing and continuing to grow with the web, well, not the website at that time, right? When did the website become a major priority alongside the magazine itself? And then how was that for you?
Yeah, it's funny. I always used to say for a long time, we were a magazine that also had a website. Now we're a website that also has a magazine. I could probably say we're social media that also has a website now. So I started in the 2001, like very early 2000s. And those first 10 years, really, I was still full-time with the Grand National Cross Country, with the Woods races. But as it turned out, because I was a budding announcer, I ended up getting the job hosting Supercross Live, which is the show you're hosting now, in 2005. So back then it was an audio webcast. So that was really a weekend job. Monday through Thursday, I was public relations and trying to get the word out and cover the off-road races and answer that phone. And then I would go to the Supercrosses on weekends. And that was the way it was for about 5 years. And then finally wasn't really making sense anymore for RacerX to be like, so we have a guy in the office that goes to all the races, but doesn't really cover the races. And his job is for other races that he doesn't even go to anymore because he's going to Supercross. So it took about 5 years for everyone to realize. And I think, you know why it took 5 years? Because I think it was hard to find someone else to want to write the stories about the Woods races and answer that phone. So
you were handcuffed to the Woods races on the quads.
It was because, I got in because no one wanted to take that gig. And then to find a replacement was really hard. So it was 2010 where I started transitioning to be more full-time motocross and Supercross RacerX guy. And then the beginning of the 2011 season was when we really revamped everything and said the website is really becoming our priority. Shout out to my buddy Chase Stallo, who works for Verbmoto now. We hired him, and it was essentially the two of us for years running that site. And it was difficult enough then, but that was before we really had to worry about social media and podcast and YouTube. What's digital went from that, a website, to all these other things. So we've had to expand quite a bit, but it really was 2011. And as it turned out for me, the audio webcast was going away. So I didn't have a gig at Supercross anymore. So I switched to be like, well, I can be all in on this RacerX website because I no longer have the Supercross thing to go to. So you and I ended up on like parallel tracks in a way. And now you're the host of the show that I used to do. Yeah. Yep.
And no gym this year, but
I know. We had our gym time, and we cherished those.
We both have had our gym time. Uncle Jim is the absolute best. You know it.
Yep.
Now let's.
Do you remember that audio webcast? That was a big deal.
100%. I used to go back and listen to it. Yeah.
Because you were probably at an arena cross or something.
I was writing. So I remember hearing, and I remember when, even my parents would listen and they would say, they talked about you. And so, so it's really funny, full circle.
Yes.
And then, of course, I raced, and Jim Hawley used to interview me for Race Day Live. This is 2009. He did some interviews for the web, whatever.
Yeah.
And when I did my very first Race Day Live in Toronto, that was the first clip we played, was him interviewing me in 2009. So
that is great.
There's a lot of circle and tie-in to this whole thing. But it's such a funny world. But now I want to transition to your job in TV, because again, you were doing a lot of different things in TV, but you eventually become the play-by-play, the host of Pro Motocross.
Yep.
Obviously, RacerX is involved in that, but just kind of take me through that scenario and when that call came to, hey, Jason, I know you're already doing 5,000 things, but we're going to give you one more, and you're going to do Pro Motocross.
Well, as you've learned, and that the world is seeing, especially this year in weirdo COVID year, there is not a less, what should I say? I guess there's not a field that's less reliable. It's unpredictable. When you're in that like show business, entertainment world, and I do even include broadcasting with that. I mean, it's not quite being a movie star, but it is just such a weird, fickle, you never know. It is not the field to be in for 30 years and get that gold watch and your pension. You're on top one day and you're gone the next. And I've seen it happen to tons of people. Our buddy Chris Bond, who is our producer for the TV shows you're on, and myself, he always gave me this line that he said, here's how it's going to go for you. One day they're going to say, who the heck is Jason Weigandt? Then they're going to say, we want Jason Weigandt. Then they're going to say, get me a younger, cheaper Jason Weigandt. And then they're going to say, who the heck is Jason Weigandt? That's the arc of being on television or movies or anything considered entertainment for a living. So I thought by doing Supercross webcast that I was making my way, right? I was making my way. And then when MX Sports took over the full outdoor series. Back then, it was just on tape delay TV. It wasn't a great TV package. They got a much better package on NBCSN. And then there was going to be 4 straight hours live, some on the web, MAV TV, some on NBCSN. So it became a full-scale broadcast. So they needed announcers for that. And summertime is when, like, every sport is going. So it's not as easy to find people to fill that role. And Davey wanted me to do it. I had already done tons of announcing. Obviously, they like me. I do work for them. And by the way, it's not because they're like telling me what to say. Like I don't get enough guidance, to be honest. They were just like, we think you'd be good at this.
That is the biggest misconception, even for me. They think that I am given a script and told what to.
Yeah.
It is none of that.
Yeah.
Like,
dude, you mentioned how many hours we're putting in. Like, we wish we had time. Like, I wish we had 3 or 4 hours a week to flesh these stories out. And let's say this would make the sport bigger and grow. Like, we're just trying to get it done, man. Mm-hmm. So that opened up. But when Davey went to they make this package with the TV networks to get the races on. And then he says, I would like this guy to be the announcer. And every one of these TV execs at, I think it was Speed back in the day, and NBCSN, and all of them, they were like, never heard, who's that? Has he ever announced anything ever? And I was like, man, I really thought I was making my way up. I was not on the radar. There was zero connection whatsoever. Davey had to pull a lot of strings to make it happen. And then luckily, once they relented, I think they really said, we'll let you do one race. So I remember Glen Helen in 2009 was the most nerve-wracking moment of my life, because it's like the first time you're going to do live TV, and if you screw it up, it will be the last. And we're not going to give you any advice or training, because our whole point is we shouldn't have to train new people. That's on you if you're not prepared. We're not even pumped that you're doing this. So luckily it went well. They let me do a second week. And that was 2009. I'm still doing it now. But the transition thing, like I know on the outside, it probably looks like this is all a smooth, long, calculated arc. Here today, gone tomorrow, no plan. You never know. That's show business. And you and I, even in our tiny slice of show business, I mean, we're not Matthew McConaughey here, but it's just what they probably face. You can have one flop movie, right? And you go from the hottest thing to yesterday's news. Working in the TV business isn't completely unrelated to that.
It seems like it's ever changing too. So whether it's a network change, a producer change, a director change, any change kind of affects you possibly. Sometimes there's no change, but it seems like it's very like unsettled at all times. So you never know. Like for you to have the run you've had there doing pro motocross.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's because you do a great job at it, and there's probably no pushback from the network anymore. I mean,
right.
You feel it.
But you never know.
You never know because all of a sudden it could change. The next thing you know, you're moved to another network and they don't like you for some reason.
So, yeah. And then, hey, how about last year? We never thought there'd be a global pandemic that might stop racing altogether. So it's just not the most reliable field. The highs are very high. The lows are very low. So there are times, I think you asked, have you even reached your goal? The answer is no, because just like you, if you're ambitious, you don't turn that off. You always want to do more and better. But I'm kind of like Ken Roxon right now. Like, you notice he's got this new attitude of like, I'm just going to appreciate what I have on this day. I'm not going to think, it's championship or my life is horrible. Mm-hmm. You got to remind yourself of that sometimes, that if you had told me at age 18 that I'd be doing this, I'd be pretty pumped. So I shouldn't be too bummed about any direction it goes from here.
Right. Now, again, everything that you do all comes kind of in the same bubble. But it's all different roles. When you are writing a specific way. When you're broadcasting a specific way. When you're on the race review shows with JT and Mathis, you're different. How do you juggle it? I mean, it's my biggest challenge is juggling all the roles, but I want to know how you do it because you have to be your best for each role. You kind of can't just be a one-trick pony across all the board. So how do you separate the two and be able to shut it off, turn it on, and be Weigandt the writer, Weigandt the commentator, Weigandt the podcaster? How do you juggle that and become who you need to be for each role to be the best at those roles?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I think that's a challenge that's pretty unique to working in a smaller industry like this. If you are, a big network, say NBC's football coverage, right? They have a person for each specific role. Somebody is their insider gossip guy. Someone is their hardcore opinion guy. Someone is their ex-coach, ex-player. You're just there to be the analyst. Someone is there just to write the story. Someone is there to be the play-by-play person. We don't have that level of staff in this sport. So I am absolutely playing all these different roles. And of all the things, I think that's almost what I take the most pride in. When I'm interviewing the kids at the Monster Energy amateur race at Loretta Lynn's, I am not Weege personality at all. I am a straight man. That is their time. When they're on the podium, it could be the only time in their life they're ever on a podium. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be clever. This is their time. When I'm running a race report on Racer X at 2 a.m, that is for the reader to find out what happened in the race. What I think or any witty quip that I can come up with, that is not what they're there for. There's no I when I'm writing. The letter I, for me, is not in those stories. When we're doing a podcast, that's exactly what they're listening to it for. They want that personality. So we have to then become the controversial, opinionated, witty pundit that you hear on the radio. And you have to play all these different roles. And as you've probably experienced in TV, even when we're on different networks, when we do a show on big NBC, I am a completely different announcer than I are in our practice show. Like when you're doing Race Day Live in the afternoon, when we have practice in the morning at Pro Motocross, and it's just Grant Langston and I, and it's the only people watching are hardcore fans because it's not even on television, it's just on the internet. We can be a lot looser, a lot more insider. When we get on MAV TV, a little more. When we get an NBCSN, a little less. And then finally, when we get to NBC, we are giving you the basics. And if I try to say anything that's funny, that might just sound unprofessional because I don't think those fans don't know me enough to know, oh, that guy's sarcastic. That's his style. They don't know that. So I do take pride in, there's probably 8 different personalities I have to have. And I think it gets hard to take your ego out of it. Like at this point, I could say that I'm an opinion guy in the sport, right? Mm-hmm. But in some of those forums, that's not the time for that. And regardless of what I think, that's not going to get mentioned because it's not for me to decide in that particular forum. I got my outlets elsewhere, but it's hard. Stephen A. Smith doesn't turn it off ever. but he makes enough money being Stephen A. Smith where he doesn't have to. But you and I, we've got to pick our battles depending on what audience we're broadcasting for.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
You have to be what you need to be for that customer base at that moment. Again, the people that listen to you guys on the race review, they don't want to hear you be the same guy you are on NBC. They want to hear Weege.
No.
And they want to hear you and Mathis argue. They want to hear JT and you all argue.
Yep.
I mean, that's why I listen. I listen to every single one because of your personalities. It has nothing to do with professionalism, whatever. And then I watched you on the outdoors, and I watched you be that Weege because you are talking to a bigger audience who might not know the funny side and know that you're like the cheapest person ever and you have technology problems.
And why would they want it? They'd be like, I'm watching a race. Why is this guy talking about his home life? What's that got to do with anything? So
why is this guy on NBC talking about how he can't figure out a Keurig?
Yes, it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. So it's so subtle that I don't tell anyone that I make this decision. But dude, again, if you see me interview people on the podium at Loretta's, I might as well not even be there. Like, that is your time. I'm a ghost. And I think it gets hard for some people to be able to turn that on and off. But I know I'm lucky enough. I got plenty of time to talk about myself.
It's funny you said that. I just had a conversation with Todd Harris about that, about how to do podium interviews. And we were just talking about how that is their moment. Everyone watching, say, Jet Lawrence, they want to hear Jet.
Yep.
So my job is only to get Jet to be Jet and then get out. It's not about me. It's about Jet. So you're 100% right. You got to be what the audience is expecting in that moment. And luckily, I don't know about you, but I feel lucky that I get to play a lot of different roles. I don't know if I could be a Stephen A. all day long. I don't know if that'd be fun. I like being, Daniel on NBC and then Daniel on Race Day Live, where I get to, in the past make fun of Jim or now Dan Hubbard. And then I get to go on my podcast or your podcast and be that person. So I actually like the fact that I get to be different roles. It makes it more fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the same thing. If people were watching the television show or Race Day Live and then they listen to Main Event Moto, your pod, they'd probably be like, that's what this guy's like. So to me, it just shows we're smarter than we let on. We actually aren't just flying off the handle and saying whatever comes to mind. It's a lot more calculated than maybe we're making it appear.
Personality-wise, I think for sure. Content, you're just always trying to be the best, but personality and delivery is always that. Start winding this thing out because you and I have more things to do.
That's shocking.
Here at a few. But overall, when you look at the sport and where it's at, and obviously we're in a weird time. We're in this pandemic has made things different, but just the trend of where the sport is going, media-wise, broadcasting-wise, athlete-wise, what's your overall take on where we're at now and where you think we might go? Because it's changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years with this access, the internet. Where are we going, Weege? Where is this thing going to go? What do you think?
Well, first thing I've got to get off my chest. This is one of my favorite rants right now. I hate when people pick one awesome podium interview from 13 years ago and then say, the riders were so much cooler back then. The interviews were just so much less scripted. And I'm like, you're remembering the one good interview and the other 498 after that were so forgettable, you forgot about them. I feel like today's riders are much better at giving real answers. When they go on these shows, it's difficult to get it all across in a 1-minute podium interview. But when they go on my podcast or yours or the other ones with our buddy Mathis or whatever, or do their own vlogs and whatnot, you hear them talk about topics that I don't think they would have talked about 10 years ago. I think they were afraid of the teams or the sponsors or what are they going to say. And I think they've all realized now, and maybe the teams and sponsors are smarter too, to say, just be yourself. We'd rather you be that than a robot. And when you think of how young these guys are, they're, to me, hitting above average for how good they are with the press, with the media, with their answers. I don't feel that you get that kind of thing out of the linemen on a football team. I mean, Daniel, you're a big football fan. When has there ever been a sideline interview after the game where a player really gives a good interview? Does it ever happen?
I would say our best interviews are better than their best interviews.
Yes. So everybody's always complaining, saying that the riders should do better, and they used to do better. The retro thing, I'm always like, you're just remembering the greatest hits. You're just remembering the one good interview in 1999 and comparing every interview today to that. And also just look at the other sports, like they just give you cliches. I feel like our guys are good. So can we be better? Yes. The thing that I think is going to help us in the future, I cannot predict where the television business is going or the internet business is going. I have no idea. There are people paid a lot of money to figure that out that can't figure it out. You know, for us, it's a little bit complicated because we're always trying to grow our audience, right? So to just say, as long as we can let people watch everything on their phone, but we also want the random person to click through and find it also. So that's a difficult balance we have to find. But I think one advantage our sport has, I think we're getting smarter at realizing people do like that insider stuff. People do like that drama. And the more they leak out there, the more popular it makes the sport. I think there was a time where they just thought, we're just trying to win races and we'll keep everything secret because that'll help us win races. I've found by talking to people in other sports, a lot of the good info, it comes from agents, it comes from handlers they want their athlete to be more popular. And if it's a little bit of drama and a little bit of controversy, they leak that to the media on purpose. That's going to grow the whole brand of everything. And there are some people, our buddy Lucas Myrtle, Jet Lawrence's agent, I mean, he's the master at this. He will tip people like you and I off with insider stuff that no one would have ever done before. But I think his playbook is talk about my guy. That'll help the sport grow. So I'm encouraged by that.
I'm with you on that. And I think that when you have people like that, and for me, Adam Cincerello being so likable and other riders seeing, wow, I just got to act a little bit more like that and I can be that likable. I think it's infectious. I honestly think that maybe the next generation of riders is going to see that it's not all about being the hardest worker who keeps myself and doesn't say anything. Maybe I got to be like Adam and maybe I got to be like Jet and Kenny and be a little bit more likable. And then of course we can get bigger stars out of them because they're likable. So and not even, they don't have to be likable. They can be just like Webb is not the most likable person, but he's got that character and you do get some access to him and these things leak and the way he says things in press conferences, which we're about to do here. In a few seconds. But I agree with you. I think maybe that pushes this thing into the next level. And then as far as everything else, who knows, but hopefully the athletes are taking note that if you give a little, we can get you out there a little bit more, and I think your brand can grow. And obviously, if their brand grows, I think it benefits everybody, including you and I. So that's my hope.
Yeah, I think they're figuring that out. So that's going to help us. The bigger stuff, good luck, man. That's above my pay grade to figure out how broadcasting is going to work in 5 or 10 years. Yeah.
Well, Weege, thanks for joining me on Beyond the Track. Super happy I was able to get you on, and I guess I'm going to probably see you soon here. That's the plan?
Yeah, I might as well just stay here. I'm proud to do it. I've always felt you're like a top 10 broadcaster or podcaster in this industry, at least top 10. So I'm really honored.
Hey, it's better than my racing career. So I'll take
it. Okay. All right. We'll do another one of these in a minute.
I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks.